Hey everyone, and welcome back to another crash course. In today's video, we'll be learning how to use conditional statements in JavaScript, specifically the if and switch statements. These tools allow you to control the flow of your code by making decisions based on conditions. We'll start with the basics and gradually move into more practical examples. By the end of this video, you will not only understand the syntax but also know when to use if versus switch statements to write cleaner codes. Let's get started. So let's start by creating a folder in which we're going to be working in. As you can see, we have now opened our folder JS conditional statements in our VS Code. So let me zoom in so that you can clearly see. So I'll just go ahead and creating an index.js file. And right now we're going to be running our JavaScript using Node.js. So if you do not have Node.js installed, please head over to your browser and type in Node.js download. After typing in Node.js download, please make sure you download the right version for your computer. So let's now get started with the if statement. The if statement tests a condition, and if the condition is true, it executes the block of code inside it. Here is a basic syntax of the if condition. As you can see, the if keyword is followed by the condition inside parentheses. If the condition evaluates to be true, the code inside the curly braces will run. If not, the code will be skipped. Now let us look at a practical example where we're going to be looking at the temperature, and if the temperature is above 25, we'll just show on the console it's a hot day. So we'll just start by making sure we define our temperature. Let's start with a temperature of 30, and now we can now start our if condition. So we just go ahead with the if keyword, and inside we'll put in a condition. So right now our condition is the temperature, and we want the temperature to be above 25 to be able to print it's a hot day. So if the temperature is above 25, then that is when we are going to print on our console it's a hot day. So we'll be just using console.log to print the message. So we can now go ahead and print this message. It's a hot day. It is a hot day. So guys, remember, if you're using some apostrophe here instead of it is, then you're supposed to use double quotes. Let me show it to you. So let's say we want to do it like this. So this one will give you an error. Therefore, you need to replace this single quotes with double quotes to make sure the single quote here just represents an apostrophe. So in this example, the condition temperature greater than 25 is true because the temperature is 30. So the message is going to be it's a hot day, and this message is going to be printed on our consoles. So if we run this using Node.js, we're going to write node and the name of the file. We can use tab for auto completion. If we now run this, we can see it's a hot day. We're saying it's a hot day because right now we have the temperature greater than 25, but let's use 20 here instead of 30 and see what is going to be printed. If I run the command again by just pressing an upper key, so I'll just get nothing. This is because we have no condition specified in case the condition is false. We only have a condition to be executed when the condition it is true. So now this brings us to when we want to print something when the condition is false. That is where now we use the else block. So therefore we're going to add an else block here, and we can put in something else. We can maybe say console.log it's a sunny day. So remember, we're using an apostrophe, so we can just do it like this. It's a sunny day. No, sorry, it's a cold day. Instead of it's a sunny day, it's a cold day. So now if we come back to our console and clear it using the command clear, then we run the same command, we shall see it's a cold day because the temperature is less than 25. So now you can see we usually use the else statement in case we want to print something, or in case we want to show something, or in case we want something to be executed when the condition is false. There are also cases where you need to check multiple conditions. You can do this by using else if. Here is the syntax. Let me clear the screen. So this is how the syntax will look like. So we'll just start with an if, then our condition. Then after this condition, we put the curly braces. So here we're going to get to have the codes if the condition, but if the condition is true. And we can have an else if with also another condition. So therefore we can say this is condition 1 and this is condition 2. So for this condition 2, we shall also say code if the condition 2 is true. So here we just say if condition 1 is true. And now else if none of the condition above, so this is going to be code if none of the above conditions is true. The first condition 1, we are going to use an if, and this is the code that is going to be executed when condition 1 is true. And we can use an else if we want to specify a condition 2 and have also certain codes executed in case condition 2 is true. Else or otherwise, we are now going to have some codes executed in case condition 1 and condition 2 are not true. In other words, if they are false. Let us now clear our screen and look at an example where the code needs to check several conditions. So let's use the same example of temperature. So I'll just start with a temperature. Let's say we give ourselves a temperature of 15. And now we can say that if the temperature, this is like our condition 1, if the temperature is above 30, we'll do the same thing as we did before. We can say console.log. Let's use double quotes since we're going to use an apostrophe. It is extremely hot. So this is the message if our condition is greater than 30. And now we can use an else if the temperature is greater than 20. We can show a message or execute these codes that it's warm. It's warm. We can also show another condition, a third condition, by using again else if. You can use as many else if as you want, as long as you have some condition tied to it. So we can now say if the temperature is above 10, we can show a different message. We can maybe console.log. It's a bit chilly. Otherwise, if none of the three conditions is true, then that is when we are going to use else. And we can now say console.log. As remember what console does, it is just going to print a message to your console. Now we can say it's cold. So we have three conditions. We have the first condition saying if the temperature is greater than 30. We have a second one saying if the temperature is greater than 20. And the third saying if the temperature is above 10. And otherwise, we have these codes to be executed. So you can see we can have as many conditions within our if statement by just using else if. Now let us try to run this. If I come to my console and I try to run this, I'll just zoom out so that we can see it clearly. So remember our temperature is 15. Now if I run this by using node-index.js, you can see it's a bit chilly because our temperature is 15. Then the condition that is going to be used, it is going to be this one. Because we cannot use this one because this one is only dealing with temperatures above 20. So 15 lies within this condition. Now that is why we are getting this message. But let's see if we just use 21. 21 is now going to print. It is going to focus on this one because this is where we have greater than 20. So it's supposed to print it's warm. So you can see it here. Let's use a temperature which is maybe 5. So if we use a temperature which is 5, we can obviously see in our console that it's cold because this condition is not within these ranges. So that is why we're going to end up printing this last message because none of the three conditions above, it is true. None of this is true, neither this and neither this as well. So you can see if statements are really simple to work around with. So now let us go over to switch statements. A switch statement is useful when you want to compare one value against several possible cases. Here is the basic syntax. As you can see on this syntax, the switch statement will take in an expression and then we are going to be evaluating that expression on many cases and have certain codes executed. So now let us look at an example using the switch statement. So this example is going to be checking the value of the day. Let's say, for example, if today is Monday, we shall be printing a message that says that is the start of the work week. So we'll start by just giving a value to our day. So our variable, this is how we declare a variable. Our variable is going to be, let's say, Tuesday. Now we can start our switch statement with the switch keyword. And then after the switch keyword, we should have brackets. And inside the brackets, we're now looking at the expression, or we're looking at one variable, which is the day. Now we can go ahead with some curly braces, and inside here, we should have in some cases. So we just start with case one. We don't put there like case one, just say case. And now we mention the value of that day. Now we can say if the case is Monday. After that case, we should put there colon. Then below the colons, we should have now what our, in case this case is made, what should we have executed. So we can say console.log. Maybe this is the start of the work week. And now after this statement, what will be executed, we should have a break. And the reason for the break, this is because it will help us now to stop the code from executing for more cases after the match. So in other words, the break or the function of the break keyword, this is to stop the code from executing more cases after a match is found. Without a break, execution will continue to the next case, even if a match has been made. So therefore, that is why we should always specify the break. And now we move on to a second case. Let's say the case is Tuesday. We can now say this is maybe the second start of the week. You can use any message you want. You can say maybe this is the second day of the work week. You can now go on and put there the break. If you save, everything will format very well. So now we can go on a third case. We can say maybe the third case is, let's not write all the days. We can say maybe Saturday, and then this should print. If we say Saturday, this should print. Maybe let's not even use Saturday only. You cannot, by the way, have two cases combined, and you can have one message or one code block execute when the two cases are met at the same time. So let's say are met not at the same time, or just meant. So let's say we have case of Saturday and a case of Sunday. We can have one message print for both of them. So now let's say this, we should say it's a weekend. So we are going to be using an apostrophe, so we should use this. It's a weekend. So now after this, we should have a break again. Therefore, once you're done with your cases or your conditions, you can end up with a default one that works the same as else works in the if statement. So if none of the above cases is meant or is matched, therefore we should show this default codes. So we just write the default and then we write whatever needs to be executed in case none of the above is matched. So we can say console.log. It's a regular weekday. It's a regular weekday. So I'll just go ahead and put here some double quotes. So now, yeah, this is it. So, but again, since we have Tuesday here and Tuesday is just a regular day, we can maybe have Friday, and we can console that Friday, it is almost the weekend, just like that. It is almost the weekend. If we want to use it's, then it's the same thing. We should now here use double quotes as we said. So now let us test this and see how it should work. I'll start with Tuesday. Tuesday, you can see it is not specified anywhere in the cases. Therefore, we should have the default show up. So now if I run this using node index.js, now we can see it is a regular day. Now it is using the default codes because none of the cases was matched. But if we use Monday, if we now come and specify Monday here, you can see it will say it is the start of the work week. If we use Saturday, we can see it is a weekend. It's a weekend. The same applies to Sunday. We can see it is a weekend. So please note again that we can have more than one case tied to only one block of code. So in other words, this block of code will execute in case it's a Sunday or it's a Saturday. So please be careful when you're working with switch cases not to write duplicates, so you can combine them and have one block of code executed. Let us now go through some of the mistakes to avoid when you're working with the condition statements. The first condition is this: forgetting the break statement in the switch cases. If you skip it, the next case will run even if it's not supposed to, which is called fall through behavior. And this is not a good practice. Please do not omit the break keyword. Using equal instead of 3 equal signs, which we call equivalence in if conditions. Remember, an equal sign is used for assignment and equivalence is for checking equality. This checks the value and as well the data type if they're the same. The third mistake: overcomplicating conditions in if statement. If you're checking many values, a switch statement might be cleaner. So therefore, do not use if in case you're checking many statements or in case you're checking many values. You would ask yourself, then where should we use if statements and where should we use switch statements? Here is a quick comparison to help you decide when to use it. Use if when you're checking ranges or complex conditions, and use switch when you have a single value with multiple possible outcomes. So therefore, you understand which one you should use in certain cases. But guess what? There are some moments where we need to use both. Let's say we are checking if a user is logged in, and if they are, we use switch statements to display certain conditions or to display certain message based on their role. So let us now look at that. Let's say we have a variable called is logged in, and is logged in is going to be true. We can also have another variable of the role. Let's say we have the role of maybe editor. Let's say we're just doing a system and we have a role of editor. We can now say if is logged in. In other words, if the user is logged in or if the condition is true, we should now use switch inside here. So now we can do a switch statement and we can say display different messages based on the role. But first of all, we need to check if the user is logged in. And you understand that one, we can't use switch statement. So now we'll be using the role to validate different cases. Let's say if the case is admin, we can say welcome admin, just like that. Welcome admin. We can say console.log welcome admin. Remember to put a break after the case. Now you can move on with another case. If the condition is editor, now we can say this is a colon, not a semicolon. We can say welcome editor. Welcome editor. Otherwise, if none of the conditions or if none of the cases are matched, we can now have a default welcome user. They say that is a normal user. So we can say the default is welcome user, welcome user. That is the default one. Then otherwise, we can also have another statement. Otherwise, if the user is not logged in, then we can say please log in. So remember here we use else. So we can now say please log in. Please log in first. So let me explain again. So why do we have here an error? So we have an error because we're using else where it is not supposed to be used. We should use, I'm cutting it, we should use else after this if. Therefore it is here. So it is also good to understand some errors and how to work around with them. So let me explain this once again. So this example shows how you can use both if and switch statement effectively. The if statement checks if the user is logged in and if not logged in. And if they are logged in, the switch statement will handle the different roles. You can see it will handle the case for the admin. It will just say welcome admin, and we're using the break to stop the execution after this case is fulfilled. Then if the editor, we shall log this, and the default, we shall show this. If they're not logged in, therefore we should tell them to first log in. So this is an else of this if statement. So please, you can see how you can use both the if statement and the switch statement together. So another thing I want to clarify, we can use functions with if statements. We can have a function and now we'll be passing a certain argument within the function to make sure that argument is used as a value within the condition for the if statement. So please, we do not always have to hard code the value by declaring it. So therefore, let us look at an example that will help us to look at that. So we're going to be looking at an example where it checks if numbers passed in are even. We are going to use a function. So I'll start with the comment function to check if a number is even. Now we're just going to be checking if a number is even. So now we're going to have our function. Let us use arrow function. We can use standard function or arrow function. It depends. But I prefer using arrow function. So name your function with a clear and meaningful name. So we can now name it check even number. Inside here, we can pass in a parameter of number. And after passing in a parameter of number, we're now going to have our if statement. So we can say if. So this is how we check even numbers. We first of all find the modulus of the number passed in, and if it is equivalent to 0, notice this, we are using equivalent not equal. If it is equivalent to 0, then we can say console.log, and we can specify the number variable by using backticks. We can say number is even. We are using backticks because we are using a variable inside here. And this is how you can use that variable. If you use double quotes or single quotes, this won't work. So after specifying this, we can have an else statement in case the above condition is not true. In other words, if it is false, we can say console.log. Again, we can use backticks to specify the number is not even. Simple as that. So now we can pass in different numbers here within this function. We can pass in 4. We can pass in more numbers. I will duplicate this to 3. We can pass in 5, and we can pass in 0. But let me explain once again. So this function, it is going to be checking if a number passed within the function is even. So inside the function, we are using the modulus operator, this percentage sign, to check if the number is divisible by 2. So this modulus sign will give a remainder. So if a number is divisible by 2 usually, or not even usually, always the remainder is 0. So please, this is how you check even numbers. In case this condition is not met, we shall now be using the number is not even. So I've just used the function. This is the good thing or the advantage of using function because you can reuse them as many times as possible. So now we should expect this one to print 4 is even. We should expect this one to print 5 is not even because 5 is not divisible by 2 because we'll get a remainder. So we should expect also this one to be 0 is even. So now let's see. If now we come and run our example using Node.js, you can see we get 4 is even, 5 is not even, and 0 is even. This is because 0 is divisible by 2, right? So now, this is how you can use functions for reusability and use if statements inside. The same applies to switch statement. You can do whatever you want with switch statements with functions. So that's it for today. You now know how to use if and switch statements in JavaScript to control the flow of your code. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more tutorials. Let me know in comments which one you prefer, if or switch, and why. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.